Robert and I were former high school classmates, and we both attended a reunion for Christmas around the corner. It had been years since we'd seen everyone, and the drinks were flowing freely. I grabbed my best friend and headed to the restroom. But as we passed the stairs, I overheard Robert's voice calling out to Sarah. He said, "I heard you're single now. I've always had feelings for you. I want to take care of you for the rest of my life." My fists tightened in disbelief. Was this really my husband? The same man who had always gone out of his way for me? My friend wanted to confront them, but I stopped her, my hands trembling as I began recording. I had to remain calm, as making a scene would only draw their attention. My friend gave me a glance. Her eyes locked on the couple, who were embracing. Sarah softly replied, "Robert, I liked you in high school too, but you have a family now. I can't be the other woman." He assured her earnestly, "Don't worry, I'll marry you properly. I'll buy you a house, a car, and give you a $30,000 allowance. I'll even get you a huge diamond ring." He looked at her as though she were the most precious thing. I couldn't help but laugh to myself. When he was broke, I had bought myself a $9 ring from a discount store online. 8 years of marriage, and it was still the only one I had. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not worthy of you," she said. "I have 3 sons, and I don't want to hold you back." Her voice softened, no longer playing a part. I knew Robert couldn't resist. As expected, he held her even tighter and said, "I'll treat them like my own. All I need is your love." He was willing to be a stepfather to 3 children. His love seemed to run deep. Sarah's eyes lit up, and she gave him a teasing smile. "Are you serious? Don't lie to me," she said. "I'm taking this seriously," he replied, planting a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Of course I'm serious. My feelings for you have always been real. If you don't believe me, I'll announce it to everyone here." Before he could finish, Sarah leaned in for a kiss and whispered, "I believe you." My hands shook even more, and my friend took over filming. Robert had never spoken to me like that before. In that moment, I realized I had lost, but I didn't want that kind of man anyway. I leaned against the wall, watching them exchange sweet words. And my friend helped me leave quietly without saying a word to anyone. I needed to go home, gather my valuables, and move all our money to my friend. Robert wasn't getting a penny. If he wanted to court his new love, he could fund it himself. He was so devoted to Sarah. Working 20-hour days should be no problem for him. I sent our daughter to my mum's place, telling her I'd pick her up in a few days. It was a blessing to live close, just a short cab ride away. At 2 a.m., Robert finally came home. He smelled faintly of roses, freshly showered. Before I could speak, he shouted, "Riley, what are you doing sitting there? You scared me. Don't you know jumping out at people like that could give someone a heart attack? Why did you leave without telling me? I was looking everywhere for you." I looked at him coolly. "Really? How did you look for me? You didn't call or text." "I'd love to know how you were looking everywhere." Robert hesitated, raising his hand as if to strike me. In all these years, he had never hit me. But now he did. The alcohol made him slow, but a surge of anger filled me. I kicked him hard in the groin, figuring he wouldn't need it again. Better if it broke. He groaned in pain, curling up on the floor. I grabbed a kitchen knife and crouched beside him. "Still want to hit me? If you do, I'll call my entire family over here." "Don't worry, I won't kill you," I said calmly, smiling. After all, he was my daughter's father, and I'd give him that much dignity. Robert's eyes widened in shock. Riley, so this is the real you. You've been pretending to be the perfect wife all this time. Tricking me? He couldn't have been more wrong. I had to be ruthless, or I'd be the one on the floor. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. With a cold sneer, I kicked him hard in the stomach. His screams grew louder and sweat dotted his forehead. "I want a divorce," he yelled. "Right now." "I can't spend another day with you." "Fine. Leave with nothing," I shot back. "Don't think I don't know what you were up to tonight, Robert. No one's that naive." He froze, processing my words. His expression shifted to realization. "Since you already know, let's split everything equally." He really thought he could get half. I knelt beside him, holding the knife near his crotch and grinning. "I heard you only get a couple $100 in compensation if it's cut off. Seems like a good deal to me." Robert trembled, terrified. "Fine. The house, the car, and you keep our daughter. I just want the company and $300,000 in savings." With the knife in my left hand, I gently patted his cheek with my right. "Think it over carefully. For the past few years, we've built this business together, earning around $600,000 last year alone. I know how hard it is to make money, so I've been cautious with every cent. Yet here you are, planning to buy Sarah a house, a car, and a diamond ring." Robert whispered, "Sarah's husband passed away, and her in-laws kicked her out. She has 3 sons. I have to help her. I promised her a $30,000 allowance to make her feel secure." I smirked. "Fine. You keep the company, and I'll give you $3,000 to marry her." Robert shook his head fiercely, but my gaze shifted coldly to his lower body. "The company and $30,000. Pick one." He struggled to his feet, rage twisting his face. "Riley, you're going too far. I've been managing the company. Why should I give it to you?" Yes, he'd been doing the front-facing work, but I was the one pulling all-nighters, bringing in clients, and drinking until my stomach bled. Without me, his arrogance would bankrupt the company in no time. Robert was almost upright when I grabbed a nearby wooden club and swung it at his back with a loud thud. He collapsed again, and for safety, I hit him a few more times. Blood dripped from his mouth. And finally, he lay there, obedient. I smiled down at him. "So, will it be the money or the company?" "Lunatic, you're a complete lunatic." He looked up at me in terror. I chuckled. "Maybe I am, so don't push me." He was nearly in tears. "Fine, I'll take the company, but I want $20,000 more. I know you have a stash of personal savings, which is also marital property." Still defiant, huh? Maybe I'd been too gentle all these years. If he thought he could claim my savings too, I raised the club and hit him again. Several times. He finally relented, agreeing to just the company. In his eyes, that company was a golden goose. I pulled out the divorce papers, and he signed them. The next day, we went to finalize the divorce. Robert, wrapped in bandages, hobbled into the registrar's office. The clerk didn't dare interfere, and beside him, Sarah looked distraught. "Riley, how could you treat Robert like this?" she exclaimed in horror. I gave her a cold smile. "Sarah, my hands are still itching for more. Why don't you help your dear Robert and let me vent a little?" Robert immediately moved in front of her. "Riley, don't push it. I'm a man, so I won't nitpick with you. But if you lay a finger on Sarah, don't blame me for burning bridges. I couldn't help but laugh. Did they really think I was an easy target? Without saying another word, I sent the video I had recorded the night before, with the word cheater stamped on their faces, straight to our high school group chat. Along with it, I typed a message. Ladies, please keep an eye on your husbands. Robert and Sarah hooked up at last night's reunion. We just finalized our divorce. Take this as a warning. Instantly, the group exploded with comments. Many classmates comforted me, tagging and insulting the two of them, while my best friend led the charge in roasting them. Robert saw the messages and yelled, "Riley, what do you want from me? I already left everything to you. Isn't that enough?" Beside him, Sarah sobbed delicately, her tears falling like petals. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have broken up your family. But Robert and I are in love. We're meant for each other. What's so wrong with that? Shameless." I slapped her hard across the face. "Keep talking, and I'll post the video online for everyone to see just how low you both are." Sarah clutched her cheek and buried herself in Robert's arms, wailing. "Robert, what should I do?" she sobbed. He looked at me with icy contempt. "Call the police. She hit you. Let's report it." Sarah glanced at me, a smug glint in her eyes. "Is that really necessary? We're all classmates after all." I folded my arms, calmly watching their performance. Robert pointed at me. "No, you're just an enemy now. She hit you, and she deserves punishment." He pulled out his phone, giving me a sideways glance. "Of course, if you agree to give me another $20,000, we can drop it." Sarah was shocked by his demand. I nearly burst out laughing. So this was their plan. "Go ahead and call them if you want," I said. "I'll report both of you for extortion. Actually, I've changed my mind about the divorce. I think I'll just drag you back home with me and deal with you properly." Both of them froze, and Sarah quickly tried to cover up, sounding almost noble. "It was just a slap. There's no need to involve the police. Riley, if you're that upset, you can hit me a few more times." Was that an invitation? I'd be happy to oblige. Before they could react, I slapped her several more times across the face. Finally, I felt some small satisfaction. "Stay out of my sight, or I swear I'll slap you both in two next week." Sarah collapsed to the floor, genuinely crying this time. I went straight to my parents' house. My mum opened the door, her face filled with worry. The night before, I hadn't had time to explain anything before dropping off my daughter and leaving. My daughter ran to me, leaping into my arms. "Mummy, I missed you so much," she exclaimed. I hugged her tightly, my voice soft. "I bought your favorite strawberry cake." Her eyes sparkled as she kissed my cheek before running to the dining table to enjoy her treat. She took the first spoonful and offered it to me. "Mommy, I love you the most." I smiled and took a bite. As long as I had my daughter, men could go to hell. She then shared a spoonful with my mum and hummed a little tune while she happily ate. My mum pulled me into the bedroom. "All right, tell me what's going on." A pang of guilt hit me. I hadn't discussed the divorce with them, nor had I asked my daughter for her opinion. I had just gone ahead with it. I took a deep breath. "Mum, I got divorced this morning. From now on, it'll just be the three of us." The words tumbled out, and I couldn't hold back my tears. It was strange. I'd kept my composure through everything else. But now, in front of my mum, I couldn't stop crying. My mum wrapped me in a tight hug. "Divorce? Then we're not afraid. Your dad and I are still here, and we'll help you." Thank goodness I was an only child. At least I wouldn't have to deal with extra family drama. I looked at her through my tears. Aren't you going to ask me why? She gave me a pointed look. What's there to ask? With Robert, there could only be one reason. I told you long ago, couples can weather hardships, but he'll never stand by you during your successes. That hurt more than anything. When my dad came home, we gathered a few friends and headed over to move my things out. My friend was supposed to watch Ella, but she insisted on coming along. Well, she would have to find out sooner or later, so I agreed. I looked at her gently, choosing simple words to explain that her father and I were divorcing, and that she will be living with her grandparents and me from now on. She nodded calmly. It's okay, Mommy. As long as you're with me. It doesn't matter. Daddy doesn't really talk to me much anyway. At just 6 years old, she seemed to understand everything. My heart ached as I held her close, silently vowing to take even better care of her. When we arrived and opened the door, there they were, Sarah and her 3 sons, playing in the living room with Robert sitting nearby, grinning like a creep as he watched them. My dad's face darkened immediately. My mum handed me a stick. Use this. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I hadn't expected them to move in so quickly. My dad could be heavy-handed, and if he wasn't careful, he might end up in jail. I quickly took the stick from her and smiled. I'll handle this. Robert's hand shook. I already left with nothing. What more do you want from me? My dad let out a scornful grunt and strode toward him. When you begged to marry my daughter, what promises did you make? Believe me, if you push me, I'll make sure my daughter becomes a widow. Robert started to back away, fear clearly showing on his face. Stay back. Ella's watching. Do you really want her to see her father get beaten up? My dad hesitated for a moment. Ella blinked her big eyes, looking at him curiously. Daddy, is it because of them that you left Mommy? Are those 3 boys your children? Robert's face turned bright red. Softly, he mumbled, Aunt Sarah needs Daddy, and her sons don't have a father to look after them. Daddy has to take care of them. Ella buried her face in my shoulder, her expression serious. Daddy, I don't want you anymore. From now on, I only have Mommy. No, Daddy. Her little eyes filled with tears. She seemed to understand everything. My heart ached as I held her close and whispered, Sweetheart, Mommy wants you too. I'll always love you. My dad delivered a sharp slap to Robert's face. You'd abandon your own daughter to raise someone else's sons. Has your brain been chewed up by dogs? You really are something. Sarah quickly stepped between them, her 3 sons huddling behind her, their faces full of fear. It's all my fault. If you're going to hit someone, hit me, she cried. Her sons whimpered in unison, pleading, Please don't hurt us. We finally have a daddy. Just let us stay. The room was filled with the sound of crying. My dad raised his hand again, but in the end, he just let out a long sigh. A man who hides behind women and children is destined for nothing. We began packing up, taking everything that belonged to me and Ella. This apartment had been a wedding gift from my in-laws, but I had bought all the furniture and appliances just last year. I had already purchased a new place that was newly renovated, but it still needed furniture and appliances. So we took everything, even the water heater and air conditioner. Robert didn't dare protest. They could only stand by and watch as we emptied the place. Before long, the house was bare. I smirked and said, Well, it's the middle of winter. How will you all sleep tonight? Robert glared at me, but with my family and friends around, he didn't dare start a fight. As soon as we stepped outside, I dialed Robert's mother. We're officially divorced. I just moved out. Robert is living with his new girlfriend and her 3 sons. If you have time, you should check in on them. The house is empty, and I'd hate for them to go hungry. There was stunned silence on the other end before she spoke, her voice trembling. Those 3 boys. Who do they belong to? Oh, the older generation never misses the important details. With a sweet smile, I replied, "Oh, I don't think they're his. They don't look like him at all. From what I've heard, she's been married 3 times and has a son with each husband. Don't worry, though. I'm sure she'll give your son one too." I heard her breathing quicken. It was clear she was furious. I don't believe it. My son isn't that stupid. Taking care of someone. 3 sons. He'd have to be out of his mind. "If you don't believe me, go see for yourself," I said before hanging up. We moved all the furniture and appliances into the new house, then listed the property for rent through an agency. The next day, I used some connections and registered a new company with my dad as the official representative and shareholder. This business would offer the same services as Robert's, and I planned to take his clients and hire his employees while he and his mother were busy fighting each other. Meanwhile, I would quietly strengthen my connections. By the time I had secured the divorce settlement and all the legal papers, Robert would be bankrupt. On New Year's Eve, Sarah called. "Riley, do you hate me that much? How could you be so cruel? You exposed us and now his mum's in the hospital from the stress. Are you happy now?" Within just a few days, they had already managed to cause her health to deteriorate. I put my pen down after hearing that. Maybe I'd treat myself to an extra bowl of rice tonight. Sarah choked up. "It's all your fault she's in the hospital. You should cover the medical bills. If something happens to her, we'll just send her to your place." So, now they were begging for money? Since when did beggars get so entitled? Sarah, if you think about it, you're the one who's responsible for her being in the hospital. You've outlived 3 husbands. And now you're hurting his mother. Quite a pattern, don't you think? What do you think would happen if I told Robert about this? Do you think he'd still want you? Panic flashed in Sarah's voice as she quickly backtracked. "I was just joking, Riley," she said. "Robert's selling the company. The one you two worked so hard to build. Can you really let it go?" "Oh, but I could," I replied. "The sooner he goes bankrupt, the better." I scribbled "serves him right" on my notepad and responded calmly. "If there's no money, then don't treat her. You're underestimating them. Robert's parents are quite wealthy, and between their pensions, they're more than covered." Robert's mother was tight-fisted, though. When I gave birth, she didn't contribute a dime, nor did she help with the baby. When she found out we had a daughter, she just left without saying anything. 6 months later, she came back empty-handed, telling me I needed to have another child so the family wouldn't end with a daughter. We needed a son. I didn't want another child, so she secretly set Robert up with other women. Back then, it broke my heart. Robert had stood by me, and I had been so touched that I helped him land 2 major clients. Now that she was hospitalized, I felt like celebrating. Yes, tonight I was going to take Ella and set off some fireworks. After hanging up, I gathered my family and bought fireworks. Ella was thrilled. She had never been allowed to light any herself, only watching from a distance. We filled the trunk with all sorts of fireworks, enough to last a while. After dinner, We headed to the riverside to set them off with a big group of family and friends. It was a lively gathering, and the fireworks were beautiful. Ella had a fantastic time. She made a wish out loud. I hope we can light fireworks every year. I hope Mommy will always be happy. And I hope Grandpa and Grandma stay healthy. I nodded beside her. Those wishes would come true. I'd make sure of it. I posted a video of the fireworks, wishing everyone a happy new year. Friends flooded the post with likes and comments. My best friend messaged me. "Girl, check out Sarah's post." I shrugged. I had blocked her ages ago. "Send me a screenshot," I replied. She sent me a picture, and after seeing it, I lit 2 more boxes of fireworks, laughing. Sarah had posted 3 photos. The first showed Robert's mum hooked up to tubes in the hospital. The second was Sarah cooking in the kitchen. And the third showed her holding a bouquet of flowers. The caption read, "Because of you, it's all worth it." Robert had liked the post and even commented, "Thankful for you, Sarah. I'll love you forever." My best friend's comment was perfect. "You're a match made in heaven. Don't ever break up." Exactly what I wanted to see. It made my night. Over the next few days, I focused on the new company. I poached 10 of Robert's employees, all trusted allies. My best friend kept me updated on their situation. They were either fighting or on the brink of it. His mother's trips to the hospital were frequent. Robert was completely overwhelmed and barely had time to manage the business. He didn't even realize I had already snatched several of his key clients. When we went to collect the divorce certificate, Sarah tagged along. I knew she wanted to make sure everything went smoothly. After a month apart, Robert looked thinner and much more worn out. I gave them a mocking smile. "You two should take better care of yourselves. At this rate, your kidneys might not hold up." Sarah's face glowed like a vampire who had just drained a fresh victim, and she flashed me a seductive smile. "You wouldn't understand. We're perfect for each other. Just admit it. You're jealous." Robert nodded enthusiastically. Being with Sarah made me realize how beautiful love can truly be. For Ella's sake, I offered him a piece of advice, just to say I did my part. As we were about to finalize the paperwork, his mother showed up. Once upright and commanding, she was now hunched over, her steps slow, her eyes dull. She coughed every other step. Guilt was etched all over her face. "Daughter-in-law, could you reconsider the divorce? I'll make sure Robert treats you and Ella better from now on." Now she realized my worth. Too late. "Garbage doesn't go back into the house once it's been thrown out," I replied coldly. "Don't worry. Sarah can give you that grandson you always wanted. You should be thrilled. It's just what you asked for." At my words, she broke down sobbing loudly. "I don't want a grandson anymore. Ella is all I need." Sarah didn't take that well. She prided herself on her ability to give birth to sons. "What do you mean? You want to cut off the family line? Robert's mother, can't you think about his future?" Without hesitation, Robert's mother slapped Sarah across the face. "Don't call me Mom. I don't have a daughter-in-law like you. Don't think I don't know what you are. You've had 3 sons, and now you want to drain this family dry. Having another son would be the end of them." She raised her hand to strike again, but Robert stepped between them. "Mom, stop it. I'll take care of the kids. Just stay out of it." I almost laughed. Did he still think he'd be making 50 or 60,000 a year like before? Didn't he notice he hadn't closed a single deal this month? His mother's face turned red with anger. Her eyes filled with bitter disappointment. If you go through with this, I'll cut you off. If that which drains you dry, your father and I won't lift a finger to help. Sarah nestled into his arms. Robert, maybe I should leave with the kids. I hate seeing you and your mother fight. I don't want you to be stuck in the middle. I had to admit, Sarah knew exactly how to manipulate him. Robert took Sarah's hand, and together they went to get the divorce certificate. His mother crouched on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably, while her son didn't even glance her way. I sighed and said softly, "Take care of yourself." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face, and reached into her pocket, handing me a bank card. "This is for Ella, for my granddaughter." I never imagined she would offer Ella a bank card. She hadn't even held Ella once in all these years. I shook my head, declining. Our family could afford to take care of Ella. I didn't want any lingering ties with them. If I accepted, would they start demanding to see Ella whenever they wanted? What if they mistreated her? And when they got older and better, would they expect me to care for them too? Too much trouble. Our family wasn't short on money. "Keep the card for your retirement," I said calmly. "For someone like your son, what a disappointment." As we left the office, his mother collapsed on the ground, and no one dared to help her. Robert glared at me and quickly dialed 911. What was his problem? His mother had fainted because of Sarah, not me. He should be glaring at her. An absolute nutcase. Thank goodness the divorce was final. Sarah knelt on the ground, crying. "Honey, this is all my fault. I don't want you to fight with your mother. What should I do?" Robert helped her up, his gaze filled with pity and tenderness for her. He didn't even spare a glance for his mother lying on the ground. Disgusting, both of them. I headed straight back to the office and promptly poached every valuable employee Robert had left, along with as many clients as I could pull. He was a lost cause anyway. There was no point in keeping anything in his hands now. What did Robert need a company for? A week later, Robert finally returned to his office, but his once strong team of 50 had dwindled to just a few people. Panicked, he attempted to contact his clients, only to find that they had all disappeared. After asking around, he realized I was behind it all. Robert stormed into my company, his face filled with betrayal, and looked at me as though I had wronged him. "Riley, are you even human? I gave you the house, the car, the savings, and now you're taking my company too." The truth was, even if I hadn't acted, his clients would have eventually left. His downfall was unavoidable. Taking a sip of tea, I responded, "Robert, you're the one who cheated. The house, car, and savings were rightfully mine. As for the company, that's because of your negligence. You spent all your time flirting with Sarah while ignoring your clients. And that gave me the chance." Robert clutched his chest, gasping for air, his face turning red with anger. "Can't you just leave me alone? I have a family to support. I really need this company." I looked at him coldly. "I already left you alone. Those clients were brought in by me, and the employees were ones I trained. If you couldn't keep them, that's on you. You should be offering better pay to retain employees and providing competitive benefits to your clients. If you were better than me, they'd stay. But the fact they're leaving shows you don't measure up." Robert stared at me, as if seeing me for the first time. "Riley, I didn't realize you were this capable. We could make a great team. Bring back the clients and employees, and I'll give you 20% of the company." I couldn't help but laugh. Did he really think I was that naive? Why would I give up running my own business to save his sinking company? Robert, you're dreaming. Here's some advice. While the market is still good, sell the company now and stretch the money out for a few years. Why such good advice? He asked. Because I know you'll never take it. When you inevitably go bankrupt, you'll regret it, probably kicking yourself for not listening to me. As expected, Robert pointed at me, fuming. I'll make sure everyone in this industry knows what kind of trash you are. You won't last. You took my clients, and I'll make sure you're wiped out. I pretended to be terrified. A clueless boss like him had no idea how ruthless the industry could be. His company was on the verge of collapse, and nobody would pay attention to him. Sure, go ahead, I said. Try to win them back. If they want to leave, I'll send them off with open arms. Too bad he couldn't pull a single person away from me. In this world, people follow the money. Whoever brings in profits is the one they'll stick with. Robert left, still cursing me. He couldn't get back the employees or clients, so all he could do was call me every name in the book. This wasn't exactly the most ethical thing I'd done, but I didn't call the police on him. If he showed up again, I wouldn't hold back. The next day, Robert and Sarah got married and proudly displayed their love on social media. Sarah even invited everyone from our high school group chat to the wedding. I congratulated them in the group and added, Did Robert buy you a car, a house, a diamond ring, and pay you that $30,000 allowance he promised? The group fell silent. After a long pause, Sarah replied, I love him for who he is. Money doesn't matter. What matters is that we're together forever. Yeah, right. So he hadn't given her a penny. If Robert wasn't willing to marry her now, he'd never do it later. I hope they stayed together forever. After all, if Sarah had buried 3 husbands, adding Robert to her list wouldn't be too surprising. I typed a message in the group chat. Wishing you a lifetime together. Until death do you part. Sarah accused me of cursing her. But wasn't that exactly what together till death meant? Suddenly, a rarely active classmate, Lily, posted a video. It was an explicit clip of Sarah with another man, both faces clearly visible. Lily wrote, Sarah, are you even human? My husband came to pick me up after the reunion, and in those few minutes, you seduced him. What kind of person are you? And someone still wants to marry trash like you. Sarah immediately replied in the group, claiming the video was AI generated and threatening to call the police. On the day Robert and Sarah got married, I attended the ceremony too. Lily had arranged a surprise, so I decided to enjoy the show. When I arrived at the venue, I noticed Robert's parents. They looked solemn, dressed in black and white, showing no sign of joy. Robert didn't look happy either. He had a forced smile on his face, clearly having seen the video. The paperwork was done, and he had to go through with the wedding. Maybe he was hoping to get some of that marriage gift fund. I came prepared with a small gift and brought my parents along. They wanted to see the spectacle too. At precisely noon, the host took the stage, explaining how Robert and Sarah had been high school classmates who secretly liked each other for years. A slideshow began, showing photos from our high school days, with many familiar faces. Just as everyone was reminiscing, new images started appearing on the screen. They showed Sarah with different men. The photos had been slightly censored, but anyone who knew her could easily recognize who they were. Sarah lost it. That's not me. This is slander. I'm calling the police. She smashed the laptop connected to the projector, but it was too late. Copies of the photos had already started floating around the room, falling from the ceiling like confetti. Robert's parents fainted on the spot, and guests scrambled to call emergency services as chaos erupted in the room. People started picking up the photos, gossiping, and casting pitying and scornful glances at Robert. His face turned red with rage as he grabbed Sarah by the hair and kicked her in the stomach. One kick wasn't enough. He kicked her several more times. People gasped, and someone shouted, "Stop! She's bleeding!" Sarah clutched her stomach, her face pale in horror. "Save the baby! Your baby, Robert!" The ambulance came and took them both away. We stayed and finished our meals before heading home, satisfied with the day's entertainment. My parents thoroughly enjoyed the spectacle. They ate more than usual. Not long after we got home, Robert called. "Can you bring Ella to see my parents? They're not doing well." It was hard to believe. "Quickly, Robert. What on earth did you do? It's only been a little while, and they're already on the brink of death. They're your parents. Don't you feel any guilt?" I hadn't wanted to bring Ella, but then I remembered what Robert's mother had said during our last meeting. So I agreed. A few months ago they were lively and vibrant, but now it seemed they were barely hanging on. I couldn't help but wonder if Robert regretted choosing Sarah. I brought Ella to the hospital, and my parents came along. I stuffed a can of pepper spray into my pocket just in case. When we arrived, I learned that they were already in the ICU with little time left. I hadn't expected it to be this serious. I thought maybe Robert had exaggerated. Sarah's husbands had all died in the past, but now it seemed even her in-laws weren't safe. When Robert's mother saw Ella, she managed a weak smile. "Ella, my granddaughter, I'm so sorry I wasn't good to you or your mother." Then she turned to me. "I can't control Robert, but please take good care of Ella after we're gone. When we pass, go to the lawyer's office. I left everything to Ella in my will. Not a penny goes to Sarah." Outside the hospital, we ran into Robert. He looked completely broken, slumped over, unable to stand straight. It was a pitiful sight, but it was all his doing. His voice was hoarse as he spoke. "The baby's gone. She lost her you too. The doctor said she'll never have children again." I shrugged, unfazed. "That's good, isn't it? You already have 3 sons. This just lightens the load. And remember, you're the one who killed the child, so why are you telling me this?" Robert's shoulders slumped even further, and he slowly turned back toward the hospital, looking like an old man in his 50s or 60s. 2 months later, both of his parents passed away. Ella inherited their estate, which would be held in trust until she turned 18. Robert was stunned. He thought the money would go to him, but his parents had left him nothing. He tried hiring a lawyer to challenge the will, but then he fell ill and was hospitalized himself. Sarah ran off with the kids, leaving him with nothing. Without money for treatment, he returned home in disgrace. When he recovered, I brought Ella to see him. No matter what, he was still her father. Robert cried as he looked at me. "You knew she was a husband killer. Why didn't you tell me?" So, he had seen the messages in our high school group chat. Everyone knew about Sarah's curse now. From what I heard, no one dared to get close to her anymore. Whenever she tried to seduce someone, I had Lily step in and sabotage her plans. As for her 3 sons, how could she afford to raise them? Rumor had it she had fallen ill, but we never saw her again. Robert lingered in bed for 2 years before passing away. By the time he died, he was covered in sores, emaciated, and weighed no more than 70 or 80 pounds. he told me, "I regret it. I've regretted it for a long time. But life doesn't offer second chances." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more. See you in the next video.